Well, it is a week after all the spectacle and the fun and the buildup and the music. And now, like I said, this season gives us the chance, after all of the rush and the busy and the festival, to really sit with and dig into now what? And what does this mean for us? This resurrection moment, this reincarnated life, this reincarnated Christ brought back from the dead. And I've got to say, as I dug through this passage this week, this was a reminder that faith isn't often what we tend to think of it or try to make it. I think the first thing I see when I read this text always is that faith is more than just a matter of having the right facts and information. All right. Chronologically, we're dealing with Sunday evening after Mary has come back from the tomb. So we aren't even 24 hours out from the resurrection. And we find the disciples, for good reason, hiding out in fear. Our text says it is fear of the Jews, but it would be better to specifically name this as fear of the Jewish leadership. Why? Because the Jewish leadership, in collaboration with Rome, were the ones who just put Jesus to death. And it is not beyond their ability to potentially put anybody that is a known associate of Jesus's to death. This is part of why you had Peter denying 3 different times that I'm with him and I know him. There is a very valid reason for them to be afraid and hiding out. Because, let's face it, if Jesus wasn't safe, nobody else in this group is either. But this group has had Mary come and say, I have seen the Lord. That, they've had Mary come tell them this. Peter and the beloved disciple had a foot race back to the grave site to verify it for themselves. Because, heaven forbid we believe a woman the first time she tells us something. But, they have the facts and information that grave is empty. It's not, that Jesus isn't there, and that he has been seen by somebody who knew and loved him just as much as they did. And they are still hiding in fear. Facts are not always enough to overcome emotion. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with us. That's just a reality of who we are and how God made us. Facts are not enough. And faith is more than just holding on to the right facts. The disciples have the right facts, and they are still scared. And that is okay. Well, then what? Okay, Pastor. So then what is faith? What does faith involve if it's not just having the right facts and the right information? Well, for starters, faith involves a body. Let me explain that. Because we see Jesus show up to his disciples first. Why Thomas isn't there, I don't know. I don't know if he decided he needed to go for a walk and try and clear his head. I don't know if he got sent to go pick up the grocery order, whatever, but he's not there. And Jesus shows up to the remaining disciples. And Jesus shows up in a body that is broken. Still has scars, still has openings. I remember one professor talking about, the text doesn't specify it, but maybe the nail site, this piercing site, the lashes on his back, maybe they were even still bleeding. Who knows, right? Jesus doesn't give them a theological and scriptural pop quiz. He doesn't give them an explanation of what he was doing between Good Friday and Sunday morning, helpful as that might have been for a lot of us. He doesn't chastise them for their fear. He doesn't chastise Peter for his denial. He shows up in a broken, maybe bloody body and says, peace. We talk so much in religious spaces about whether we are too intellectual or not intellectual enough, or if something is too emotional and sentimental and not emotional enough. And Jesus showing up in a broken body reminds me that it's not just our faith experience isn't just about our brains and intellectual capacity or our emotional competence. We are, as human beings, we come in bodies. Our bodies are no less part of the experience and the living out of our faith as anything else. Right? And the fact that it's just still broken when Jesus could have easily and miraculously healed every scar and wound so that it looked like nothing happened is also just for me a great little reminder that perfection isn't the point, right? God shows up God calls us in all of our existence, not just the intellectual, not just the emotional, but the physical embodied experience as well, in broken bodies, no matter how perfect they are. Doesn't matter if it's the right size, the right weight, the right color. Doesn't matter if it still works the way it's supposed to or not. Our faith is as much an embodied physical experience as it is intellectual or emotional. And if you're thinking, how in the world is that possible? I'm going to posit this. Once upon a time, you could walk into most churches, and what did you find in the pew under you? Kneelers. Why? Because we understood at some point more, we held on to and leaned into more the idea that changing our physical posture from standing versus sitting to kneeling indicates something very different about what we're doing and how we engage our faith and our worship. Faith is not just about what we know. Faith is not just about what we feel. Faith involves the whole of human experience, including our bodies and our physical lived senses and experiences. But also, faith involves honesty. Jesus has come to the original disciples without Thomas. He has shown the disciples his hands and his side and the scars. So now Thomas comes back and is greeted with these words of, "We have seen the Lord," right? Now they're chorusing what Mary said on Sunday morning. Mary came and said, "I have seen the Lord." They come now and say, "We have seen the Lord." And this is where I've got to say, we have done Thomas dirty for 2,000 years. We have, and he didn't deserve it. Because Thomas says, unless I see his hands and the scars, I will not believe. We want to act like, well, I'm going to hold on to a little bit of that because I'm getting ahead of myself in my sermon, but we want to give Thomas grief for this. And all Thomas is doing is being honest about what he needs for his own faith and faith life. Why is that such a hard thing? Why do we get so bent out of shape, uncomfortable, insecure when people around us are willing to name what they need? Could it be maybe we don't realize our own needs and we don't know how to ask for that? It's a thought. And I'm going to point out, everybody thinks that Thomas is being some high-maintenance diva for asking to see Jesus' hands and sides, but hey, we just read the text. The disciples got that. He's not asking for anything more than what his buddies got. Like, you got that, I want that too. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that wanting to have the same experience as the other people you know and travel with and work with? And I think also even though the word is never used, Thomas is a perfect example of honesty, because Thomas, I will hold till the day I no longer preach, that Thomas is speaking from a place of grief. Thomas just watched with the rest of him, one of his good friends and teachers, die a horrible execution that is excruciating at the hands of the state. I have to wonder if part of his "I won't believe it till I see it" isn't about theology or orthodoxy or whatever. It's simply about the fact that we're maybe 72 hours out from Good Friday. I wonder how much of that is just, don't get my hopes up. Don't get my hopes up that this is a nightmare I'm about to wake up from. Don't get my hopes up that maybe my friend is still alive, because I also have to worry about what happens if you're wrong, right? And now I have to get slammed right back into my grief all over again. Or put it another way, you ever known somebody who was fresh off a divorce or fresh off the death of a spouse, and probably you heard them say pretty early in that, "I don't know if I'll ever love anybody again. I don't think I'll ever date anybody again. I'm done. I'm not risking that again." But then with the benefit of time and other help and moving on, what happens? They end up dating somebody again anyway, right? Or not, but, or not. Not impossible, but, in those instances, we've all probably known somebody who, in the middle of that fresh hurt, is like, "Nope, done, never doing it again." But with the benefit of time and healing, what happened? They ended up going on to find, maybe they were fortunate and found somebody anyway. Come on, we've all known that person and seen that. Heck, maybe sometimes we've said that ourselves, right? So Thomas isn't somebody whose faith is struggling. Thomas is just somebody who's grieving. And, well, historically, we have never, as humans, ever really been good around the emotion of grief. So faith involves an embodied experience. Faith involves honesty about where we're at in the situation at hand. But also, faith involves relationship. Because I'm sure as I'm sitting here, somebody's going, "Okay, Pastor, it's okay, Pastor, if really if Thomas's doubt isn't the problem, then why is it that Jesus comes and chastises him with this whole "do not doubt but believe" thing?" Well, let's talk about that. That word that we translate into the word doubt in English is not really doubt in the Greek. The word pistos, that Greek word, is better translated as unbelieving. Now, unbelieving Thomas doesn't have quite the same ring as doubting Thomas, but stay with me. And in the Gospel of John, belief and unbelief come with a very clear understanding. Belief and unbelief are not about having the right facts, about believing the right things. It is not about orthodoxy or anything intellectual. Belief, as John understands it and writes it, is over and over about relationship. It would probably be better understood, when you see "believe" in the Gospel of John, it'd probably be better translated as abide, right? So, like I said, this isn't about John's lack of holding on to the facts or understanding the facts in just the right way. This is about John needing to rest and abide in the relationship he has with Jesus. Faith is not about assent to theological dogma. Faith is about relationship, knowing and abiding in Jesus. And that, as Thomas reminds us, is something that very much happens on a one-on-one level. There are a lot of things about our life of faith and how we live that out that are certainly communal. And there are a lot of things that, as Christians, we cannot do apart from community and connection with each other. But there are some things and moments and things that just involve us one-on-one working with Jesus and getting to know Jesus for ourselves. And Thomas is a great reminder of that, right? We want to give Thomas grief for not just taking the disciples at his word. No, because Thomas needed his own experience. Back when I was on internship, I helped with, Wednesday night confirmation over at Calvary. And I remember one Wednesday night, we were looking at the first article of the Creed. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. And to just get the conversation going, Pastor Kyle asked the kids, so when you read that, what comes to mind or what sticks out to you? And I will never forget this. One 13-year-old boy said, well, I believe sticks out to me. Okay, say more about that. Well, I believe sticks out to me because it reminds me that it is my job to read and pray and discern and get a grip on what it is I believe about all this Jesus stuff. And here I direct quote, no one else can believe this for me. 13-year-old. 13-year-old understands more than some theologians I know. I posit, right? Relationship is a one-on-one thing. I can't have a relationship with Jesus for Pastor Willard, just like he can't have a relationship for me. We can talk about that, encourage each other, swap tools, but at the end of the day, relationship involves me doing the work and me making the time to get to know and abide in and build a relationship with Jesus. So faith involves all of our body, all of our experiences, not just the intellectual and emotional, but our body. Faith involves our honesty to name where we're at, when we feel good about things and when we struggle and what we need as part of walking this out. And faith involves relationship, not just my churches or my families or my parents, but my relationship, our individual relationship to Jesus and what it takes for us to abide in that. That's a lot to start with on the first week of Easter. Christ is risen.